Hey guys, and welcome back to another Star Wars video from me. And in today's video, something a little bit different than usual. Usually I'm doing reviews and such, but I had a certain idea. Basically, a lot of people were asking me questions of me being a fan and how I became a fan and whatnot. And I remember a couple of years ago, like 4 or 5 years ago on YouTube, a very, I guess, important question that came up in the Star Wars community was getting to know a Star Wars fan. That was like a Q&A series that people did, and I never participated in that at all. But now I thought maybe it is time to do something similar to that concept on my channel. Just like I said, a lot of people were asking questions, so I wanted to do the same thing. So me answering certain questions that people ask a lot and that I can answer for you guys, so you guys get to know me as a Star Wars fan, or maybe different stuff that you guys didn't know from me. And I have some help for me today because I can't read the questions, but my girlfriend is filming for me. She's gonna read the questions for me, and I'm gonna answer them, and if I want to show you something, I can move around and show you that stuff. If not, I just answer the questions, whatever the question is. So we're gonna start off with the first question, and she's gonna ask it in just a second.
So, how old were you when you saw Star Wars for the first time?
So, I did answer that question about a month ago, I think, in one certain video, and that was how I became a Star Wars collector, I believe. But in that video, I also answered that question, being I was about 2 years or 2 years and a half old when I first discovered Star Wars. Basically, my uncle showed it to me on this old Super 8 film roll. Like, it was just 15 or 20 minutes of the first Star Wars movie. That was back in 1995, something like that. 1994, 1995, something like that, when I saw Star Wars for the very first time. Again, that was just a very short clip of the first movie, A New Hope, and that was just a very compiled film. Like, you have the intro, you have a space battle, you have the end. That's about it. And something is like, there's no sound or there's no color. It's one of those two, and I can't remember. But that's how I discovered Star Wars for the very first time. Absolutely blown away by Star Wars. That little clip that I saw, and then I guess a few months later, or like a half year later, I got to see all 3 films on VHS from my uncle as well, and that's all before the prequels. So I became a Star Wars fan at a very young age.
The second question, when did you start collecting?
Okay, so again, I did answer that question in that same video because there are a lot of different steps that came from being a casual fan to have seen the films to being a collector. Because when I was 3 years old, I got a lot of figures for my birthday, and I did tell that in that video as well. But being a collector, making the transition from being a regular kind of kid that plays with toys to being a collector, that I guess I came when I was about 12 years old. We just had internet at home, I do believe, and there are some sites like eBay, but then from Belgium, that sold, a lot of people sold Star Wars stuff, and back then vintage was not as expensive as it is right now. And there was this guy, I guess about 20 miles away, that sold a bunch of vintage stuff, including the AT-AT Walker. I'm just looking at it right there, and he sold that with like Ewok Village and I guess 40 something figures, and that was like $40 for the entire thing, and they even had last 17 figures in that. So a lot of great figures, and a lot of them were complete, a lot of vehicles as well. And again, for that price, you couldn't really beat it, even if nowadays, there's no way that's gonna happen with vintage, that you can find a deal like that. But that's basically when I became a collector, because then I had a display cabinet, I had to put everything in there, and then I got more stuff and more stuff. You keep buying stuff from the same franchise. Whether, as a kid, you get a lot of toys from parents and family members, and that's all from different franchises. So it just kind of, in your, how do you say that? In your mind, you decide what you can collect for, I guess. So that's basically the point where I start collecting. I guess that's about, like I said, 12 years old, right about there.
So you also collect other things besides Star Wars?
Yeah, see, I started with Star Wars, and as a kid, I know the first major big hype that was going on school ground or playground, wherever at school, was Power Rangers, and I was a big fan of Power Rangers as a kid. But I never had a lot of toys because even my parents already knew back then that I was a big Star Wars fan. My uncle made me Star Wars crazy, so I never had a lot of that stuff. I only had a few figures, I believe. And now, growing up, being 24 years old, I am happy to say that I am kind of a Power Rangers collector only for seasons 1, 2, 3, the original series, which is the one I grew up with. Even though I watched a lot of the other seasons after that, that is still like the bread and butter of Power Rangers. For me, that is a very nostalgic era. So Power Rangers is one of the things. I guess NECA as well. NECA really started with Pirates of the Caribbean. I love those movies, and those figures are very detailed. I have reviewed almost all of them on my channel, and I'm a big fan of that. And even if I'm looking in my room, I guess Power Rangers, NECA, Star Wars are like some big things. Maybe like Marvel and DC just a little bit. Not too big on those. I mean, I'm a Marvel fan and DC fan from the movies, but I don't want to collect all those figures because there are a lot of figures and it's very expensive to buy all of those. So I guess just 3 major things at the moment. So yeah.
And what was your first figure?
So my first figure, like I said, I saw those films at a very young age, and after I saw those films, my uncle collected the figures when he was a kid, and he had some doubles, and I got those from him. So if I show you guys, which is, I'm gonna take this one out. You got this like very old 1977 version of C-3PO, which I got as a gift from my uncle. It was his version, so that's one of the first figures that I actually got. Together with, if I'm putting his bag, I guess like the Stormtrooper is like one of my first figures as well. Again, a double from my uncle that I got. Although it's not this one. The one that I got from my uncle is yellowed and it's in a vehicle somewhere. But Stormtrooper and C-3PO are my first figures that I got. And then I guess like a half year later, I had the Power of the Force 2 stuff for my birthday when I was 3 years old. And I think, yeah, I think that's about it. I didn't have any figures before that. I think those are the 2 major ones, and then the Power of the Force 2 line came out when I was 3 years old. I got a lot of figures then from my parents, and vehicles as well, so that's when it really started.
And what's the last thing you bought?
The last thing I bought is something, I guess Black Series 6-inch related, because nowadays a lot of people are in the 6-inch line, because if you take a look at like 3.75-inch figures, they're not as good as they used to be. I bought Luke, and I made a video on him, but I can't show him because he's not in my room. I actually left him downstairs because I filmed yesterday. Completely forgot about him. So I got Luke from Last Jedi, and I got the 6-inch Clone Commander Grail. You can see that there next to Tron. You can see that. Yeah, there is Grail. That is one of the last figures I got together with Tron. Both those figures. Other than that, I don't think there is anything that I got recently that I can come up with. Don't think so. Those 2-3 figures are definitely the ones that I got last.
Okay, so next question. Is there something you regret buying or selling?
Okay, so regret selling is something I do know right off the bat, because I had this, I guess 5 years ago, I had those Republic Commando figures, like clone troopers in special kind of armor and special colors from the Republic Commando game that came out back in, 2005, 2006, something like that. They made those figures in like this 2 sets, like they made an old set, they made a new set. I had the old set, and I think I sold them off or I traded them off, which I definitely regret, because I do want those figures back now, because I love, Scorch is one of the characters, and I don't know the other names, but I do want that back. That is regret selling. Regret buying, something that's very hard to answer because I think one of the things that always comes up is my Sideshow Darth Malgus like figure. It's a beautiful figure, but I paid a lot for it, and there is something about the joints that I don't like, something about the armor that I don't like. It has that fake leather material that comes off, which I absolutely despise. And I'm looking at it right now, but I'm not the biggest fan of that figure when I have it in my hands. If it's on a shelf post, it's fine. It looks great, and you can make great pictures with it. But I'm not the biggest fan when I have it in my hands. It's just very hard to move around. So I guess those two do answer that question.
And if you could only save 2 items from a fire, which one would you choose?
See, so that's another difficult question to answer. The first thing I immediately think of is C-3PO that I got from my uncle, the one that I just showed you. Because it is my first Star Wars figures, there's a lot of memories attached to that figure, and a lot of memories attached to, me growing up with Star Wars. And then the other item, it's very random maybe, but it is Sideshow Anakin Skywalker. You can see right there in the cabinet. He is fighting like Luke, Obi-Wan from Episode 3. I don't know what it is. I guess it was my first Sideshow figure that I got from that company from Star Wars. And there is something special about Anakin. I always loved Anakin as a character. Mainly because of Clone Wars. But the figure itself might not be the best, but it definitely has some kind of special memories to me. Again, like I said, for a Sideshow figure. And yeah, I really, really like this figure. So maybe that one together with 3PO. I can come up with different things as well. Like, I don't know. Just a lot of stuff in my room that I could pick. But those two I would go for right now.
And who is your favorite character?
So, favorite character in all of Star Wars, that's very hard to decide because you have a lot of different things. You have the movies, you have the animated TV shows as well, like Clone Wars, Rebels. You do have stuff that is expanded universe that is not canon anymore. Then you have the canon stuff like comics and books. So it's very hard to decide. If we say movies, like I'm gonna differentiate it into a couple of categories. Let's say original trilogy, prequel trilogy, and animated. So original trilogy, I would go with Darth Vader and Han Solo being 2 of my favorite characters. As a kid, I leaned more towards Luke, I guess, than Han. But when growing up, I like Han more than Luke. I just like the kind of anti-hero vibe that he gives people, and like there is something about him that makes him cool, and I guess everybody kind of wants to be Han Solo. And then Darth Vader is the obvious one because everybody loves Darth Vader. He's one of the greatest movie villains of all time. So that is not a very hard decision to make. Prequel wise, that is not that easy actually. If you go again like good side, bad side, I guess like Darth Maul I really like, but I really like him in Clone Wars and not so much in Phantom Menace. He kind of stands around and says a few lines. Jedi, I think Qui-Gon is a very interesting character that I really, really do like. Unfortunately, he only was in one film, but they somewhat expanded on that character in Clone Wars, just a little bit. So I would pick Qui-Gon for prequels, and as a bad guy, I don't really know as a Sith who to choose. Like, I like Dooku and I like Grievous, but I'm not overly obsessed with them, so I would just go with Qui-Gon for prequels. And then animated, I would go with Ahsoka and Cad Bane. Ahsoka I was not a fan of Ahsoka at all when I first saw her in the Clone Wars movie. That was a very something about that character that was very annoying, but she did grow on a lot of people, and so on me. She also did on me. I really love Ahsoka. At the moment, I also have that book that I got from E.K. Johnston. That's a great book. And Ahsoka, and then Cad Bane. Cad Bane, I do believe, is the best bounty hunter. I already made a video on. I do think Boba Fett is overrated, and Cad Bane is a lot better than Boba Fett. So Cad Bane and Ahsoka for animated. So there you go.
And what's your favorite movie?
So favorite movie, like a lot of people, Empire Strikes Back. As a kid, I leaned towards Return of Jedi. because I guess the cute Ewok stuff is something that you can, I guess, relate to as a kid, because you can defeat a big army, or you can, or in a kid's eye, it is like you can defeat bigger children, or the obstacles of the world that you are faced with just stones and rocks and something like that. Nothing too special. And then if you grow up, you can see it's not really the case. I mean, it's nice to see that they kind of implemented that in the film, but it's not really the case. And Empire has that dark tone. It has that dark ending, because not every movie has to end on a good note or happy ending. It does not happen in Empire, and it's a great film all around. I guess, either one of two, but for now, Empire Strikes Back.
And you already mentioned the prequels, so what's your opinion about them?
A lot of people like to shit on the Star Wars prequels, and that's, I guess I can understand that, because there are a lot of things that are not good about them. I don't like all the storylines either, but I do find enjoyment in all three films. In Phantom Menace, you do have that great duel between Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, and Darth Maul at the end, the great John Williams score, and in the background, so you do have that. Attack of the Clones, you do have the Geonosis arena kind of stuff. I love that part. One of the things I don't like about Attack of the Clones is the romance between Anakin and Padme. It's just not written very well at all. Just really bad dialogue, which could have been done a lot better. But I know it had to happen in that film, because you gotta make that transition to being Anakin becoming Darth Vader, and there has to be a reasoning behind that. So, again, not a big fan of that, but Attack of the Clones overall, I mean, if I have to choose like one of my least favorite films out of the trilogy, now out of all like 8 films right now, I would choose Attack of the Clones and being my least favorite. And then Revenge of the Sith being one of my favorites, actually, of all films, of all Star Wars. I don't know, something. Revenge of the Sith is really, really cool. I like that film a lot. That's also the one that I put on the most. If I'm in a Star Wars mood, if I am in a Star Wars mood and want to watch something Star Wars related, Revenge of the Sith is something that comes up quite easily. So, prequels, I like them. There's enjoyment in all of them. There are bad things in all of them, but you can overlook the bad stuff to see the good stuff, I guess.
What's the current Holy Grail in your collection, and what are you still after?
Okay, so Holy Grail, currently in the collection, very easy question to answer. My Star Wars 1977 12-back Clipper R2-D2 figure. It is in my display cabinet. Don't think you can film that because it is a little bit dark in there. But I made a few videos on it. Recently I made a Kenny Baker video. That is probably the one that I would pick as current Holy Grail, that R2. And then as one that I am still after, that would be Exar Kun from the Expanded Universe, like figures, the comic Star Wars comic pack figures. It's just a very hard figure to find, a very expensive figure to find. I guess it's like $150-200 loose. It's one that I really want, but you can't pay that much for one stupid figure. I mean, it's kind of silly. So that would be one of the things, I guess. So those two would qualify.
Now a question about YouTube. How did you start with your videos?
Okay, so I guess I started in 2011 or 2012, somewhere around there. I guess I saw recently on my YouTube page that I became a member at like August 2011, and I started uploading in 2012, February, something like that. But it really, like, channels like Sitler229 and Jedi 4 Master, so are channels that I watch a lot. Again, Filmmaker Mike as well. Few channels I really liked to watch, and then I saw what they did with Star Wars and how they reviewed stuff, or how they, got stuff to show just what they got, and I thought I can do this. Maybe I can do this too. I guess in 2012 I uploaded my first video, which was a Star Wars room tour video, like part 1, I guess, and then I made a part 2, and then did a review, and then from there on I made about almost 600 videos from the time I'm filming this, and then yeah, I guess that's really where it started, 2012, something like that. I met a lot of great people on YouTube or by YouTube in those years. So I'm like, what, 5 years, almost 6 years into this. So yeah, and I still enjoy making videos because otherwise I wouldn't be doing this like now almost every day or every 2 days. So
The last question, do you have some advice for other YouTubers or collectors?
okay, that's a very hard question to answer. Advice for YouTubers, it's you can't really give advice nowadays. Big channels take up all like viewers, and YouTube recommends big channels. So if you start and you're a small channel, it's very hard to make like an audience to reach an audience on YouTube. It's very, very hard nowadays. So if you already have a certain fan base, it's a lot easier. But you still have to start. You have to share your video on a lot of different social media everywhere almost, because otherwise your video won't reach the audience you want at all. So I mean, you have channels like Sharmus Prime and like you used to have Sean Long. Those are big channels that I personally don't like to watch at all. I don't think those channels are good anymore because they try to I mean, they almost say you gotta pay me to review stuff, which is crazy. But YouTube does like promote those kind of channels because they get ad revenue from all those channels, so that's good for their company as well. So, but the smaller channels don't get that much attention anymore, which is a shame. And now, for starting collector, first of all, you gotta decide what do you want. Like, what do you want to collect? You want to collect action figures, sideshow, hot toys, gentle giant busts. I don't know if the vehicles, only the vehicles, the Lego, anything. You gotta decide that. And then if you, let's say, you decide you're gonna collect the action figures, there is this great book written by Steve Sansweet. I guess it came out 2012, 2013, something like that, where all the figures are cataloged in that book from 1977 to 2012 on. I mean, almost everyone. Not there's a few that are not in there, but that's a great book. That's the ultimate guide to source figures or something like that. I don't know the exact title. I do have that book, and that's a great book. But you can also check out sites like Rebel Scum, Yakface, Jedi Temple Archives, Jedi Business. There's great collector sites as well. And you can find a lot of great photo galleries online. If you say you're interested in a certain product, but you don't know how it's gonna be displayed or whatnot, you can check out videos on YouTube, or you can check out, like I said, photo galleries. So that's an important thing to note, so you can like say, okay, this is something I want to invest money in or not. And so yeah, that's a great starting point, the book, and just checking online and really deciding what you want to collect. So yeah, I guess that that does answer all the 11, 12 questions, something like that. This video was probably very long because I already noticed it in my head. But yeah, I hope you guys stick around for the end, whatever. And I will be making a lot more videos. If you guys have more questions, you can always leave them in the comments, or if you maybe want to like send in questions, I maybe can do a Q&A at one point, because I used to. I mean, I think I did one or two in the past. That's a lot of years ago. So maybe I can do one again. So if you guys have answers, questions, you can leave them in the comment section below. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next video, and may the force be with you. Bye.